Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brittany, and I am back for our Raising Special Kids Here with Families, Here for Families weekly Facebook Live series. I'm so excited to be hosting this week. We have a really wonderful special guest that's going to join us. She's already here, so I'll do a little intro in a few minutes. But for those popping on, if you got that notification on your Facebook feed, please join us. We're here today for our Here with Families, Here for Families Facebook Live. And we're going to be talking about some online learning tips and strategies. And I think it'll give a lot of parents some peace of mind as school's starting next week. Some parents have already started with their children, and we're all in this together, just trying to figure things out. So thank you again for joining. Just a little update on what Raising Special Kids has been up to. So we have been busy, as usual, supporting families virtually. We have calls taken every day by our family support team, helping parents with issues regarding, special education, questions about DDD and Arizona long-term care, looking for therapists, connecting with our parent leader team, all kinds of ways that we support families are going on, and we've been happy to keep doing that. We also are doing virtual trainings. Just today, we had a virtual IEP training and a positive behavior support training. So we have lots on our class calendar. So make sure to check out raisingspecialkids.org and our events calendar, because we have a lot going on all throughout this coming month. Lots of exciting ways for parents to learn at home, and we're hoping you'll register. So thank you again for joining us. Another highlight we had last weekend, we had our Transition Institute, where we had youth and parents of young adults and professionals working in the field supporting our young adult population with disabilities come together for a virtual conference where we talked about what is possible, how to make plans for the future, and just a really inspiring day. It was a really great conference. And if you have questions about the topics we discussed, make sure to connect with us. Our direct number is 602-242-4366. And I will be watching the chat, and I'll post our website in there once we get moving. Just something else to note on your calendar for those just jumping on. Our executive director, Mr. Christopher Tiffany, is joining Jennifer Kupachevsky of the Kyle and Kupachevsky Law Firm. They are having a webinar next week. It's free. The information posts today at 3 o'clock on our Facebook page, and we'll have several posts throughout the next 4 or 5 days promoting it. But they're going to talk about an inside look at raising special kids. So what is it exactly that we do, how we support families, what it looks like when you call in, the types of things we help families with. So it's a great way and a great opportunity for you to learn about our organization, because we want to help our Arizona families and get the word out. So thank you again. I'm so excited about our topic today. I'm a mother of 3 daughters, one who has disabilities and medical issues. So school, it's kind of making me kind of gear myself and get ready for this school year, because as you all know, it's still, schools are still doing distance learning, and we're heading into this new school year with special education being done pretty much over the internet. And a lot of parents are intimidated and admittedly stressed on what that's going to look like and how they're going to balance this continued normal that we're going through right now for our families. So thank you so much, Elizabeth. Today we have Elizabeth Bird. She is joining us, and I'm going to let her do a proper introduction, but she is a mother. She's a special needs mother. She's an educator, and she has lots of experience of having children receive their special education services via the online platform. So I'm so excited to learn from you today, and I'm going to let you take it away and introduce yourself, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you, Brittany. I'm very, very happy to be here. I feel very honored to have been asked to come and share some time with my parents. I mean, this is my group. So yes, I am a mother of special needs students, or children or adults now. I have 6 children, all of whom have had an IEP through school for different reasons, different learning needs. I have 4 who are on the autism spectrum. So I've kind of sat through a whole lot of different meetings as a parent of my children. I have experienced personally the online school experience with 4 of them on different different times and for different reasons. And so um, I've gone from full-time with an online program to part-time with an online program to last year I experienced what everybody else did when COVID hit, and a student that, you know, my youngest, who's still in school, who was in a self-contained classroom, suddenly came home, and we had to find out. I didn't even know whether he could do an online program, and that actually turned out pretty well. But we've been doing online off and on for about 13 years. I am a special education teacher. Currently this year I'm the transition specialist for the school I teach with, which just as so everybody knows, I do actually teach with one of the online programs. And so I will do my best not to talk about that unless, but if you have questions, naturally, I would be more than happy to answer those questions. So that's about me in a nutshell. It's just all disability all the time in my house.
Well, thank you. And I should have noted that you're also on our parent leader team. So you share your words of wisdom and support to many families that we connect with through Raising Special Kids. So we're so grateful to have you helping us in that way too.
Yes.
So for those listening in, I've already seen people started commenting on the chat. So if you have a question or a comment or anything relevant to this discussion, don't worry, I will be watching it. And when the time comes in our questions, I'll break and ask Elizabeth if it's okay with you to answer some of those. But thank you, Brianna, Michelle. Brianna noted that she's overwhelmed, which I can agree with you on that one. And I think many parents are going to feel a little more reassurance after we have our discussion today. So let's get going. You did a great job introducing yourself, and it sounds like you have different reasons for why you chose online learning for your different children. Do you want to talk about just a couple of reasons why it's been a good thing or a choice you needed to make?
Sure. Like I said, it was a couple different reasons. Now my children, most of them are adults now, but they do still all live at home. So my life still revolves around them and their needs. My oldest sons, I have twins. They were my first experience with online school. They had a need in middle school, I think it was, that it became necessary for us to bring them home. And I was not sure how it was going to work with the two of them. I am very fortunate in that they work very well together. So we only had one home computer. They switched off very easily, which is not always the case. And so, you know, that can be one of the things that causes stress with
Sure.
families. But they did very well in that regard, that setting. I sent them back to the public school for their freshman year, and they spent 1 year in public school again, and then they actually wanted to come home their sophomore year. They felt that they learned better because they do both have some pretty significant learning disabilities. And one of the benefits of online learning is they have everything kind of visually in front of them. And so they could pause a lesson to take notes, to rewind it, to play it again. And that was really beneficial, I think, for them in that regard. So they graduated actually from an online program, which we were just thrilled with. And that experience, they've actually continued on where they take college classes online. They've gone in person, but they still kind of feel a little more comfortable learning through the online experience just because it gives them a little bit more of that flexibility. My other experience with online was my middle son. He was short credits his senior year. He was like, I think it was 2 credits that he was short. And because of his special needs, we had just planned on him staying in school and, you know, taking care of it the next year. but he decided he wanted to graduate. And that was one of the things that I feel that if they have that ability to advocate for what they want, I might as well do my best to help them. So we chose an online program that allowed that dual enrollment ability where he would go to school during the day, he would come home, and then he would take one class for 6 weeks. And again, because he's one of my children on the autism spectrum, he has a little bit more severe needs than his brothers did. So I really was not sure how online was going to work for him. He did great. And so we were very happy with it. When my youngest came home last year, due to COVID-19, that was a different experience. It was a positive experience. And I do give that positivity to his teacher. And I will say that that is one of the keys is his teacher did a fabulous job with setting up the environment. It was just kind of like she still continued where instead of sitting at the desk at school, they were on the computer, and they got that direct instruction still. He still had expectations of completing work at home. The most difficult for us was remembering to get him back online after he had a break, because both my husband and I were home. We would try to tag team, but if we were both busy with something, we would look at the clock and say, oh, you've got to get on. And then it would be that scramble. But, it was a pretty positive experience. Overall, he still did very well, and we were very pleased with it.
Great. Well, it sounds like you had a really devoted teacher too. And I know, as a parent with a child with a disability, I'm so grateful too for these teachers working so hard and trying to adapt this way of teaching for our kids. And I imagine having a household full of kids that have school, I don't know, do you need to set like an alarm system or something to remember to log in every time?
We actually did. We had to teach him to set kind of like with his showers. We do an alarm for his shower. So we brought the little chicken next to his computer, and we had him set it for that 15 minutes when he got a break to call him back. That was our solution, but it took us a couple weeks to kind of finally come up with that idea.
That's a good one. So let's keep moving forward with our questions. So what does special education services look like? What does it look like to have an IEP implemented online? What are some of the ways you could share with parents how it's worked for your kids?
Okay. Well, I will preface it by saying it will depend on the program that you're doing. For our families who they choose one of our online schools, and I'm familiar with 4 in Arizona. They are all fairly similar in that, when you accept federal funds, you accept federal laws. And so because they get the public funding, they have to provide special education. That's the law. Now, I will admit, some schools I think do it better than others. And that's due to a lot of different reasons. I think sometimes it's how long the school has been in effect in Arizona for them to have worked through some of the bugs. It also depends on, sad to say, the buy-in of the school. So I am familiar with 2 of the schools, of their programs and how they do it. But it looks fairly similar to what you have in the public education. I mean, you're still going to have your annual meetings. You still have the documents that get sent to you. There's still signatures and everything like that. It just then varies from school to school as to how those meetings are presented in order to get everything put into place.
Okay. So this is a related question. So how do your children or some of your kids, how they received their specially designed instruction and their related services online? How did that work?
Again, for the program that we chose for our sons, the student, my sons that did full-time, because
Okay.
it will vary whether they're full-time or dual enrollment, and I'll talk about that in a second. But for full-time students where the school that they're attending is their school of choice, that school becomes the purveyor of the IEP. How they received their services looks, it's how the school sets it up. And that is one thing that as parents, as we're going through the online school process, ask those questions, you know, when you enroll, as to what kind of programs do they offer, because that it will vary from school to school. Some of them only offer like related, not related service, but resource support, where the student receives their services in the general education environment, and they're supported by the special education teacher. And then maybe they'll be invited once a week for special lessons with that special education teacher. In the in other programs, like the school that I do teach with, we have a very involved program, and it has evolved over the years since I've taught there. But we offer in our system, we offer level A support for resource, we offer level B support for direct instruction, and we offer level C support for our self-contained level students. We have teachers who their position is in those levels,
Mm-hmm.
and then the students' days will vary according to which level of support they receive. If you're okay with me giving you an example, so let's say you have a student who has a learning disability and they receive resource support. That would mean that their courses, their teacher of record would be the general education teacher, and then they would receive the support from their special education teacher in a resource setting where, in addition to their general education classes, they would be invited to a special class to meet with their special education teacher for reading, for writing, or for math, sometimes for all three. So depending on the level of service in that resource is how many extra classes they have. And then that teacher would support them. They support them by making sure that, you know, their needs in their general education class are met. And then if they gather data according to what the IEP goals are, you know, for that. Our general education teachers are very, very good about following the accommodations. And that is at both schools that I was familiar with, that I've personally familiar with. The teachers receive copies of the IEP. They reach out to the families. They verify the accommodations. They ask questions of, what do these accommodations look like? Now, I will be honest, there are times that when a student comes online from the brick and mortar, some of their needs they might change, you know. So for example, if you are a student who needs, what is it? Like you need somebody to go in and help you organize your backpack, you know,
Sure.
on a daily or weekly basis. Online's not going to be able to do that exact support, but we can reflect it in that we could say, okay, well, we're going to give you strategies for following your daily plan. We're going to monitor your classes. If you're missing work, we're going to contact you to help keep you organized. So we mirror it, but we don't always manage to do exactly, you know.
Sure. So for like if your child receives speech or OT, is it just one-on-one over a setting like me and you just over the computer and you do a session just like almost like you would if you were in person? Is that what that looks like?
Pretty much. It will depend on what the need is. So
Mhm.
if we have a student for speech, say, if they're working on articulation or grammar, sentence structure, that would be a one-on-one, almost exactly like this. We do use Zoom in our setting. I know some of the schools use like Google Meets.
Mhm.
New Row is another one that's out there. But they meet, they have the headphones, they can see each other and they support that way. If you have a need where like the students need is social skills, then they're actually organized with a group where they, you know, there'd be like four or more in the group when, and they practice their skills together like that. But it works very well in this type of setting.
I love the group social for so many reasons, not just the speech, therapy, working on goals, but also just kids are craving that social interaction, especially right now. I know my daughter's school, they did it in the spring right when COVID hit, and I'm sure they'll adapt it again. They just barely started, but they would have designated, twice a week, just social chat with their classmates. And the teacher was there just kind of having fun with them too. And just gave those kids that attention and, time with their peers that they're craving. So that's pretty great. I love that they do that. So how do the teachers track progress since they're not in person with your kids?
That is probably, I'm going to say my personal experience as a teacher doing so, that can be one of the most difficult things to do. When the student shows up to their scheduled sessions, when they complete the work in the online school setting, it's easy. It's just like in the brick and mortar. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you gather materials, you put in your teacher's observations. It becomes a little harder if you have families that aren't as interactive, where the students don't always come to their sessions, their scheduled classes with their teachers. Maybe they're not very good about doing their online school. It becomes much harder. But I always say, no data is still data. So, if a student isn't participating and working the program, that becomes part of the discussion. And sometimes the discussion is online school the best fit. Of course, with COVID, that's going to be different because you can't just say, all right, this isn't a good fit. Maybe you need to go find something else because this is what everybody has. So it's going to be a much different experience with the, I'm going to say, forced online with COVID.
Sure. I know this is a lot of families that are calling us from the family support team. They're asking, how do I track progress at home so I can, communicate to my child's IEP team on where they're at? Do you have any, tips as a mom of things parents could do to kind of do their own data collecting at home?
Well, first of all, I do want to say it is not the parents' responsibility to gather the data for the IEP.
Right.
It's wonderful if we have parents that are wanting to do that, but it is up to the school to gather all of that information. If you as a parent want to gather the information, I would say set up your computer and or the learning space at the beginning. And the reason why I say and or is it's interesting to go from what I call the analog world to the digital world, because we get used to having that paper and pencil. So if that's what you're used to, make sure you have the paper and ink, print out the work, put it in a designated folder, and keep track of it. But become comfortable if your child is going to be online, become comfortable with those digital tools. And if your student is doing digital work and you don't want to spend the money for paper or ink, get comfortable printing to a PDF or saving it to a PDF and save it into a digital file for the student. That's my biggest suggestion on that. Of course, even in the online school, do encourage your children to still do that offline work by hand. That is one of the things that I think we struggle with in today's society, is that so much is online, and especially when it comes to math and other hand manipulatives, it is really hard for our students to pull themselves off of that computer and do that handwritten. And so that's the area that I would say, by all means, really, really encourage your student to do that offline hand, calculated work, because they need that muscle memory from the head to the hand in order to really keep it.
I'm hearing my math teacher telling me, show your work, show your work.
Yeah.
And thank you for clarifying. Yes, it's definitely not parent responsibility, but I think just being a member of the team, we hear parents are just feeling like, oh, well, the teacher's not seeing my child, so I want to at least provide them some information. But I love those tips because, we don't know how long we're going to be doing this. So it's just good to be involved in, helping our children as we're trying to get back to school and back to this normal right now.
Yeah.
So, for your own children that have had IEP goals, did they make progress well in the online platform?
I believe they did. I think goal progress, I'm going to be honest with you, as a parent, I was less concerned about goals than I was the accommodations.
Right.
Because to me, the accommodations was the day-to-day nitty-gritty. The goals, I always said, that's up to the school because that's their important thing to follow. That's their proof that they're showing progress with the students. It will depend a lot on how the goals are written and what the expectations of the goals. They're for a long time, goals focused on that 80% progress, and you didn't see a lot of progress. When you have a student that comes in 2 and 3 or more grade levels behind, and they have an annual goal that they will make 80% progress. No, you're not going to see the progress on those. So as you make them more appropriate, where even in the online school, can they make 30% progress in a year? Absolutely. The key factor on that is the student does have to work the program, and that is something that I think sometimes what has happened with some of our families who go online is our kids live online, and parents sometimes say, well, they're on the computer. Kids are, I always say, they're like water. They're going to take the path of least resistance, and they're also really adept at hiding what they're doing when they're not in class. So they have 2 windows open, so when you come by and you glance over their shoulder and you see that they're in class, when you walk away, they can click that very quickly. So as a parent, get in closer, make sure you have it. As long as they're working the program, these schools, for a tradition, for the online school programs, they're made to promote progress. As long as the student doesn't just jump to the test. And that is another thing that we do see in the online school world is we can actually tell how long the students spend in the lessons. And so we can tell if the student has gone in, jumped to that quiz. A lot of online programs, you may not know this, the kids can automatically take the tests 3 times without having to request it be reopened or anything like that. And take it 3 times, you pass it, and you're done for the day. And they haven't learned anything other than to take the test because they didn't go through the lesson. And so there needs to be that buy-in. And so that's where having our parents be there. I'm not saying you have to sit next to them, but monitor how long they're in the school once a week. You don't have to do it necessarily every day. You don't have to do it all day long, but as long as they know that you're going to check up on them, the students will, go through the program, and then they will make progress.
That's a really good tip. I have 3 daughters, 2 of whom are teenagers. So they're pretty savvy at technology, even a lot better than me, actually. So I think I like that you're suggesting that as parents, yes, we're busy. Yes, many of us are telecommuting and trying to help all of our children, but we've got to be involved and kind of keeping an eye on because we want them to have meaningful learning, not just memorizing those test questions. So that was a good reminder, and I'm taking that one to heart for myself personally. And I just wanted to remind people, the families listening in, thank you for your comments. Carolyn says she's also had a positive experience with her grandson with online learning. So he did well with it. If anybody else has a comment or a question for Elizabeth, feel free to put it in the chat on Facebook Live, and I'm watching it because we wanna help you and give you some guidance. So practically, let's ask a practical question. So how do you organize your day? So when you have multiple kids at home doing their work, they're all online, what are some ways to stay organized to make sure everyone's kind of on task?
Well, one of the biggest things is treat your day as you would a regular day. I mean, I think sometimes we have the tendency that we're online. I can sleep until 10 and I can no, get them up just as you would any other day to go to school. Now, for those high school students that leave at 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning, let them sleep till 7:30. But set it, say at 8 o'clock, everybody needs to be doing something. Um, when you have multiple computers, they can all be online at the same time. And there is nothing wrong with having them be in a central place. Kitchen table actually works really, really well. That way you're not running all over the house. They're there. It kind of gives that social,
Mm-hmm.
component again. Excuse me, but also just, it lets them know, okay, every day I'm going to be starting at 8 o'clock. If you have just a single computer, that's where the dance comes in. It's a little bit harder. Um, Most of the time, the schools for online, they do record them, and if you miss the live session, you can watch the recorded session at another time. What I would say as a parent, if you have multiple students that are home, and I would kind of pick the students first that really needs that teacher to be able to ask the questions for, to be given the live experience most of the time. I would say switch off so that the other student does have that opportunity that, okay, Monday, John goes to the live sessions in the morning, and Joey goes in the afternoon, and Tuesday they switch off. That way they both get those live sessions, they both have the recorded sessions. I would say make sure that even if you don't have an individual spot like a desk for them to sit at where they keep all their materials, have a place for them to keep their materials when they're not using them. So like if you're going to set everybody at the table with their computers, because most people use laptops now, have a central place where when they're done, they put them away, and the work that they've done independently is in the same place. Give them cubby holes. Kids, like their own space. They like their own materials. Don't make them share if they don't, they don't work well. And if they don't sit next to each other well, then set them on other ends of the table. Those parenting things. We all know how not to, kill them in the car because we don't let them sit next to each other. We put the peacemaker in between them. Those types of things.
Perfect. So thank you. I love those tips. Those are great. And I like the one you said about having our kids on a healthy schedule. We did a Facebook Live a while back about mental health tips, and that is one of them. And if everyone's staying up till midnight and sleeping until 10, you just don't feel good. And our kids, hopefully, eventually they'll go back for the ones that are choosing to. So, and if not, even if they're at home, we want them to have a normal sleep schedule. And that was good advice, because as a parent, it's easy for me to be like, well, we don't really have a specific time we have to get up. However, I will say my daughter's school, they are requiring them to log in by 8:15, and that's their attendance. So I think it's good. It's getting them up and ready, and it's given us a more, normal day.
Yeah.
So thank you. So back to, services. How do parents, what is a suggestion if a child is at home and it's not going well and they're on an IEP? What do they do if there's an issue? Do you have some good communication tips with the school that you could share?
My biggest communication tip is communicate.
Yeah.
Your teachers will call you. They will send you emails. Some schools have the ability to text. There's usually an opt-in document that you sign that because they're not going to just automatically text your students or yourself. But if reach out to them when the teacher calls you, call them back. If you're not a phone person, text them back or send them an email. Just keep in contact. That's the biggest thing, because your teachers are there to help. They want your students to succeed. And so, keep those lines of communication open. If you as a parent, because this is where, like I said before, you're not keeping track of the progress on the goals, but you are that person there. If you're seeing that it's just not working, and the example I'm going to give is resource. I'm going to go back to resource, because direct instruction is direct instruction. The teacher is the person directing. Resource is one of those sources that in the brick and mortar setting, resource, the student gets pulled out maybe twice a week. They walk down the hall, they go to the teacher, they have a live teacher there. In an online school setting, that resource support might only be one day a week on Thursday. And that might be the only time that your student is actually seeing that resource teacher. So if you as a parent are saying, wait a minute, my student is going to the classes, the material is too high, I don't feel the teacher is, accommodating enough, reach out to your case manager. Sometimes things can be adjusted through an addendum. Sometimes the whole team needs to come back together and say, wait a minute, you know what, the level that Mary is working at, it's the gen ed class is moving too fast. It's too high. We need to rethink and maybe move her into a direct instruction setting, so you just have to be very vocal. Don't let your students fail for a long period of time. Sometimes I think we have that habit in brick and mortar, because 45 days, we can't make a change for 45 days to show that it's not working. In the online school setting, 2 weeks is an eternity. So if within 2 weeks you are working with your student, and one of the things that we find is it's the first time sometimes that our parents have really seen what their children's skills are. And they've been sending them to the brick and mortar and they get back little bits, but when they're online for the first time, they'll come to us and they'll say, I didn't know that he couldn't do basic math, and yet he's been in the general education classroom for years. And so we do need those types of communications from the parents. Don't wait until the 9 weeks are up and you failed 9 weeks of class. In 2 weeks, be on that phone with your teacher. Either the school needs to step up the number of times that the resource teacher contacts you, or they need to set a meeting so that they can move from resource to direct instruction so that the class is more appropriate.
This is wonderful guidance. And actually, you've already kind of started answering my next question. So do you have any advice for parents when getting ready to attend a virtual IEP meeting?
Well, it will depend on the school again. More and more technology is moving more and more meetings into this type of setting where you can actually see each other. Usually for online, you're going to experience either a meeting only over the phone, by a classroom where you can at least see the document but not see the teachers, or in this 3D type of where you can see the teachers and see the document. I have experienced all three. If you're going to be on phone only, and make sure you know that ahead of time, ask the school. Usually when you get the meeting notice, it'll tell you if you're going to be in a classroom. It'll say, here's the number, here's the link for the classroom. So that'll let you know, oh, we're going to be in a classroom. I'm going to get to see the document. If there's only a phone number, then you reach out to that case manager and say, I need a copy of that draft. Mm-hmm. So that you can follow along, because it is really hard as a parent. I've been there to listen to them drone on and on, and you're like, I don't know, that sounded okay. I need to see a visual. So always make sure you have a visual that you can follow. Um, for our school, we do our meetings in Zoom, so we can see each other. We always pull up the documents. We take notes right there on the draft so that we can keep them. We know where the discussion was. Um, you know, Zoom has made them 10 times, 100 times better. But always, as long as you can see it, you at least know what everybody's looking at. Um, but you know, for coming to the meeting to prepare yourself, I would say just make sure that if you're online and you do have those saved materials, like, you know, if you think I'm going to ask them to consider moving from resource to direct instruction, um, bring your examples that you've gathered. The school should have them as well. And if the student has been working the program, they usually know ahead of time whether they're going to make that recommendation. But if it's been hit and miss, but if you've got it, bring it so that they can look at it right then and there, you know, so that you can communicate that.
Thank you. And, you know, some of this is just good wisdom for any IEP meeting. You know, get a draft copy of the IEP if you can in advance. Whenever I'm talking to parents, or even for myself, I would always write down, or I always do write down a list of concerns ahead of time just to keep myself focused. Because sometimes, as you know, IEPs meetings can be maybe emotional or overwhelming or stressful. And so if we're organized with our thoughts and our concerns, I'm sure you can agree, it just helps the meeting go better, and maybe helps the staff kind of know how you're feeling about where your child's at, and just good communication all around. So I love that. Thank you. And I wanted to share with you, Elizabeth, we have some comments. Teresa, thank you. She said she agreed with you. Yes, it was the first time I recognized that he didn't have basic language skills, noun, verb, adjective. I was overwhelmed thinking he wasn't keeping up. So yeah, I mean, it can be definitely eye-opening. And then another Stacy said, we love Elizabeth Bird. She's been such a blessing to us with our son, Ben. So someone you must know who's wonderful in the community, and great tips. Thank you. So I think you're giving us some really good guidance. And it's just nice, I must say, just to hear from a mother that has done it successfully and her kids are doing well. Because I think that's what many parents, or I know, we're just worried about our kids. We want them to stay on task. We want them to stay learning and be supportive. And it's creating a lot of fear. So Elizabeth, I'm just loving hearing all your positive advice and hearing that your kids have, you know, graduated from high school, they're doing college classes, and it's really neat to hear. So thank you for sharing your wisdom, because it's inspiring for us on the other side of things that are nervous about it all. And I got another comment that said, this has been so helpful. Thank you. So I wanted to share that with you. We talked about this just a little bit, but I wanted to bring it up once more. How do you create social opportunities for your children, even in COVID? Do you use technology? Does the school provide any social time during the day?
This will vary from program to program. The existing programs, the schools work really, really hard to help with some of those social. In non-COVID years, there are some what they call the blended learning or hybrid situations where there will be a central place for some learning, and they have activities there. I know a lot of the schools provide field trip opportunities once or twice a year to meet the teachers in person. They go to the zoo, they go to the science center, you know, they have those. With the school that I teach with, we do have some social activities, like they have each week the schools will have their, what is it, the I call them the rah-rah things, the
Have assemblies or
assemblies, yeah, you know, they get together, where they have a thing that they discuss. Sometimes they put them in groups. A new thing that is a lot of schools are getting are the esports, where they have teams, and when they say esports, it's like video games where they divide into teams and they, you know, they play against each other, and a lot of our kids have really have a lot of fun with that. Now, I will say that it can be difficult to foster a lot of the social virtually because, not every family is open to having their students participate in chat forums.
Mm.
I mean, I know like even during class, sometimes you have to turn off the chat because it's like, I need you to pay attention to this lesson. But we try to do that. We try to give them time before and after the learning time to chat with each other because the students really do crave that. And then like for me personally, I just made sure that we participated in community things, our church group, uh, a lot of there's a lot of community programs. Some cost money, but some are free that
Mhm.
you can participate in. If your student is going online, but the public school has some after school programs, check with them and see if they have, if they will allow your student to participate in those. Sometimes they won't because of, insurance purposes, but a lot of times schools are, it's open to the community whether the student goes to that school or not. So check in with that. There's a lot of opportunities. You just sometimes have to look for it, unfortunately.
Sure. And for parents listening in, all of us at Raising Special Kids, we're always trying to gather those resources. So if you need help finding, online social opportunities, or even when life gets back to normal, recreation for our kids, call us because we can help you seek some of those out. But Elizabeth, I love those ideas. And the esports thing, that sounds really cool. I'm going to have to look into that for my own kids. So, wrapping up, you've shared so many words of wisdom, but are there any more tips or encouragement that you could share with parents who maybe are stressed about distance learning or maybe are overwhelmed about beginning it next week? Any good advice for them?
First, get dressed in the morning. I don't know why it is that just, pajamas all day, you feel like, pajamas are for when you're sick. Get dressed and so that, yeah, and then go that way, then you're ready to go outside during those breaks. You won't have to stop in and get dressed, so that's the first thing. Get dressed, comb your hair. My next thing is enjoy the time with your family. Um, Even if this is not something that you have chosen, if it's been thrust upon you by COVID, um, take the lemons and make lemonade with them. Our kids, when they're little, they want to be our best friends. They want to be with us. And we always, we sometimes say, oh, well, when they get older, then I can talk to them. And then when they're older, they don't want to be near you. So enjoy it. Find one thing. One of the things that I got this off a television show, but find one thing each day at the end of your school day that you thought went well, even if it was just lunchtime or the kids didn't yell at each other, and have them pick something. If you start having that focus of what went well, then it's a positive experience. It's okay to think of one thing that didn't go well and think of why, and then plan a way to fix it later. But my biggest thing is, let's stay positive and enjoy that time with your kids. This other one is, during this time, don't let your kids know that you don't know something. Because they're going to come to you, Mom, what's this and that, and some of us haven't been in school for a long time. In fifth grade, curriculum we might not remember. So instead of just saying, oh, I don't know, switch that to, let's find out together. Let's look up that answer. One, it keeps you as the smartest person in your child's life. And we want that. We want them to think we're the smartest people in their lives. And then it teaches them, oh, learning is fun. I can look up strange little things to learn it from. So keep that power. Let them think that you are the smartest person because you know how to look it up. And I think, like I said, just try to have fun. Just try to have fun the best that you can. I know that there's a lot to worry about at this time. Um, but our children are going to pick up on how if you're worried, they're going to be worried, and it's going to affect how well they work. So if you can stay positive, they'll be positive, and your day will actually do a lot better. You're going to have that deer in the headlight look for probably 6 weeks. Accept it. You can't force it. It's not going to come any sooner. But if you know that it's going to that 6 weeks is going to stop, you're going to be comfortable. You're going to look back and say, I did it. It'll just give yourself a chance to breathe and then reach out to your teachers.
Thank you so much. I'm just soaking in all that good advice. In our family, we do like the high and the low, and we kind of do the same thing. Okay, what was your low of the day? What was your high of the day? Mostly focusing on the high, and then we try to figure out how to help with whatever the low is. But I think, and it's another good thing that came to mind. Actually, a parent I was talking to this week said, I kind of set the thermostat in our home figuratively. So, if mom's like super stressed, then it trickles down to the kids. So it was a good reminder, Elizabeth, for us to be positive. And I like the idea of my kids thinking I'm the smartest one in the house. That I'm good with that. I'm thankful for YouTube, so we could look up those math problems I've forgotten how to do. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and finish off this Facebook Live for the week, but I am so grateful. And clearly from the comments coming in, everyone has enjoyed listening to you and learning from you, and just having that reassurance that, we can do this. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your really busy day to help our community and provide your story and experience. So thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. So for everyone else in our Raising Special Kids community, we will be back next Friday for our Here with Families, Here for Families Facebook Live. Also make sure Wednesdays we do Facebook Live in Spanish, and we have some great topics there as well. In the chat, our website is posted, our phone number, how to get in touch with us. And if you need individual support for your child for special education concerns, we're here for you. We're all in this together. Please call our office. We're ready to help you and help you navigate next steps as we all head into the school year. And with that, I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Thank you.